Besides making $860 million in 2019, the UFC also held 517 fights that year. With 2 fighters competing in each fight, there was 1,034 fighter bouts that year for the UFC. So the average amount of revenue generated for each fighter bout was just over $830,000. In comparison, Bellator was projected to see $80 million in revenue in 2019 and held 495 fights, or 990 fighter bouts, which means the average revenue generated by each fighter bout was just over $80,000. So the UFC generated 10 times as much revenue per fighter bout as their competitor. We also know from the antitrust lawsuit that the wage share or compensation for all the UFC fighters averaged around 20% of all their revenue. While for Bellator, it averaged around 45% during the class period. Based on that wage share, the average UFC fighter pay per bout was almost 5 times as much as the average Bellator fighter compensation. What that means is Bellator could pay 100% of their revenue to their fighters and still not match the average pay per UFC fighter.